Now this spiritual warfare, flesh and blood breaking down. You either got faith or you got unbelief, and there ain't no neutral ground.
Imagine, there's no heaven. I want you to fix this. There's no heaven. There's no hell below us. Above us, only sky. What does that mean?
Because I think the teachings of Christianity are immoral.
He thinks Jesus Christ was a real person, was the Son of God, was crucified, dead and buried, suffered under Pontius Pilate, and rose again from the dead. So I know where I am with him.
Shine your light on me.
I don't think any other host in the United States would set up this debate with Dylan's Studio Gospel CD, which is one of my favorites, okay? Because this is Bob Dylan as he embraced all different genres of music, gospel.
It's funny, though, I have to say it, he never sings more beautifully than in this phase of his life.
I just needed Christopher Hitchens. If I could just get him to say that, then the debate is over. Now, you're listening to the Laura Ingraham Show. We have a lot on our plate this Friday, and we have an hour devoted to a question that in the end is probably a lot more important than healthcare reform or pay czars or even the war in Afghanistan. It's this question. Is Christianity good for the world? Is it a force for good? Now, this question is at the heart of this new DVD that's available that I watched last night. Called Collision. It pits the best-selling author and self-avowed. Are you agnostic atheist? I always mix it up.
No, let's get it
right
off on the right foot.
Yeah.
I call myself an anti-theist in that I think that the belief in a supreme dictator is a positively harmful one, as well as false.
Okay, so we're clarifying that right off the bat. So
yes.
Christopher Hitchens against fellow author, evangelical theologian Doug Wilson. Forget the cough button there, Christopher. You don't have to use it.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
God, that's like Radio 101. It's not like you've done the show before. As they go on the road, and they've done this debate. And Christopher has done a similar debate with my old friend Dinesh D'Souza, whose new book is just out. The evidence for heaven, or I can't. Well, he's going to be on in a couple of weeks.
The afterlife,
right? And Christopher, I know you wrote a amusing blurb for the back of that book because you go around and you've done fascinating debates with him on the same subject.
I'm the dog to Dinesh's pony.
Yeah, exactly. So the Dog and Pony Show continues here on the Laura Ingraham Show, and also joining us, of course, as I said, is Pastor Doug Wilson, who's joining us. Unfortunately, Pastor Wilson, you're not in the studio, which would have been a lot more fun, but we appreciate your joining us as well.
Thank you very much. You're right. A lot more fun, but this should be fun.
And the DVD, by the way, is exclusively available at Amazon.com. And it really is fascinating. If you want to have a Friday night with the family where you got some teenagers, you want to learn something and actually be entertained, it's very entertaining. So at Amazon.com you can purchase it, and it's also playing at select theaters across the United States. So this is a real collision of ideology and thinking. And I'm going to really try in this hour, and this is going to be hard for me, but I'm going to try to be a referee. I'm going to try not to take a side here, which is, Christopher, I got the cross on. I'm going to put it in my shirt here because I'll reach for that in this discussion. I want to start with you, Christopher. The case.
Don't make me reach for it.
The case for Christianity as a negative force in the world. What's the most powerful argument?
I think that religion attacks us in our, well, I'll say Christianity, we'll just only do Christianity today, but Christianity, like other religions, attacks us in our deepest integrity. It says that we wouldn't know what morality was, we wouldn't be able to derive ethical statements or actions if we didn't have supernatural or divine permission to do so. So it essentially robs us of our responsibility and also of our freedom. It says that we are the objects of a divine design. I call it the idea of a supernatural or celestial dictatorship, which shapes our ends, which demands things of us, which plays with us, is capricious with us. And I think also it's mythologically based, and I don't think that delusions are good for people. I don't think to be credulous, to be a person of faith, is a good thing in itself. I think anything that challenges us in our most important faculty, which is that of reason and open inquiry and skepticism, anything that tries to replace that with faith is bad by definition.
Pastor Wilson.
Well, part of the problem is hearing phrases like bad by definition from someone who says there is no God, there is no overarching absolute right and wrong. So if religion attacks us in our deepest integrity by saying that we can't know what morality is, and that undermines our responsibility and freedom and makes us credulous, I would want to ask the atheist, there is no God, no heaven above us, no hell below us. What's wrong with being credulous? Now, I think there's something wrong with being credulous. I think there's something wrong with being irresponsible and enslaving yourself. And but if someone says, well, why do you believe that these things are so? I would say, well, because God, who is the definition of all things, has exhibited his character in his word and his law and the world that he's made. So I've got a grounding for these things. There's a very important point here, and that is that if you read the book, Is Christianity Good for the World, that Christopher and I did, and if you look at if you watch Collision, this is going to come up again and again. There's a distinction that has to be made between atheists behaving morally and atheists being able to give an account of behaving morally. I believe that atheists can behave in civilly decent ways and behave morally, and many of the things that Christopher writes about with high levels of moral indignation, I agree with. I just don't think he can give a coherent account of those things if all the universe is time and chance acting on matter.
Well, the more we know about the universe, the less we know, which I find rather exciting. I don't mind that. That was Socrates' definition of being educated, was to have some idea of the limits of what you know. And now we're in a position where we know a lot more than we did about our own origins as a species and the origins of our cosmos as well. But we know we're just grazing on the edge of enormous fields of non-knowledge. And the one thing that's absolutely not useful to us, I think, is to make the a priori assumption that we do know. I mean, you virtually said a moment ago, Pastor Wilson, that you have some idea of what God has in mind.
Yes.
Now, I don't know from what source that's quite unavailable to me and many other people. You draw that.
Well,
I don't know how the Pope claims to know what he claims to know. He claims not just to be a morals bureaucrat, but to hold the keys of Peter, to be the vicar of Christ on earth. And what I'd say about that is, I want to know how this Bavarian bureaucrat claims to know something that is inaccessible to me.
Well,
I think he's just another primate, as are you, and as am I. And the way we'll make progress is by admitting that, realizing how alone we are, how little we know, how ignorant we are, and then using the methods of reason and free inquiry.
But
Pastor Wilson?
Yeah, Christopher, you can't have it both ways. You can't say that we know stupendously little about the universe, and then say, and all that universe out there that we don't know anything about, by the way, there is no God out there. There is no God over it. That's an enormous claim.
Well, we couldn't make that claim. Atheists don't make that claim. We only say there's no reason to believe that there is.
So you're saying that, and this is nuancing...
People who claim to know, will have to sort of get off the island, I think, quite soon, because starting an argument by saying, actually, there's no point in this argument, I already know who's in charge. I already know what's expected of us. It's a very, very weak way, I think, of opening a debate.
May I interject here? I wonder this. I wonder. Yeah, no, good point. I'm just sitting here listening and I'm enjoying it. Where did the universe come from? Where the idea of the Big Bang, which many people ascribe to, and that's fine. That's what they ascribe to. But what came before the Big Bang? I mean, the idea that this is all created out of nothing, that seems to defy if logic, reason, if we want to stick to that, Christopher. How do you grapple with that?
Everyone would love to know what came before the Big Bang.
But doesn't that then bring you to the idea that an ultimate force, an ultimate creative force, has to have been at play?
Not unless you're prepared to postulate another creative force that created that one. You get into an infinite regression with this argument.
Everything starts at somewhere, though. That's my point.
Well, indeed.
What's the definition of infinite?
If you pose a God as the creator of all that, all you are, by the way, is a deist. You say that there may be a God who started it off.
But that's a big question, though,
is it not? It doesn't mean that you would still have all your work ahead of you to become religious and to say, I not only know that a God did this, or I postulate that one.
Right, but I'm trying to start at the beginning.